Hi guys, and welcome to today's art club hosted by Artgecko. My name is Kat Thomas and I'm going to be running an observational drawing workshop for you guys today. The aim of the workshop is to hopefully have lots of fun with some different drawing activities, really see how far we can take a drawing and just explore the value of drawing and various drawing processes. I'm going to be doing a series of observational drawings today, but with a bit of an abstract and experimental twist to them too. And hopefully this will give you some fresh perspectives on drawing, whether it's something that's totally new to you or whether it's something that you already do quite a lot of. So firstly, a little bit about me. Like I said, my name's Kat Thomas. I'm a multimedia artist and illustrator as well as an educator. Drawing is very much at the heart of my practice and what I do, both using it as a way to engage with the world around me. I do lots of on location and observational drawing, but it's also very important to me as ideas generation, as a place to start really and then take ideas further. So I have a few quick drawings from my sketchbook just to give you an idea of the stuff that I do and kind of where our workshop could be headed today. So, like I say, just a few observational drawings here, just of my parents doing some board games in the garden. As you can see, my drawing isn't much about kind of hyper-realism or any kind of accuracy or precision, but more about capturing a certain moment and a certain feeling, and lots of energy as well. I love capturing energy in my drawings too. And I also love drawing whilst walking too, so simply just having a little walk in nature is really inspirational to me, and I love just kind of capturing things that catch my eye, as well as lots of movement and energy. And this, for example, I then took further and I made a crochet piece out of this drawing, largely because I just loved this kind of shape of the path and the shadows. See a few more here. I work quite quickly as well. And another thing that I've often have a lot of fun with is drawing from TV. It's a really good place to start if you're maybe feeling a bit stuck for inspiration. Pop the TV on and there'll be loads of amazing content for you to draw there. So these are some gymnasts from the Summer Olympics. I was really drawn to this amazing movement and the kind of superhuman positioning of their bodies. So I had a lot of fun drawing them. I don't often use a lot of colour when I'm drawing. However, I did really like using colour in these to just kind of get a bit of a focal point between all of the figures. Okay, so that kind of hopefully gives you a little insight into my drawing and how I approach it. So yeah, I'm going to be showing you a few different activities today. But firstly, just a little note on the materials we're going to be using. So I've got here a wonderful Artgecko sketch pad. It's the all media sketch pad, 150 GSM, really nice paper. It's got quite a nice texture to it as well, and it's just a really good thickness for me. So massive thank you for Artgecko for that. But again, whatever you have at home, guys, will be pretty much fine for today. If you want to use a sketchbook, that's great too. We're just going to be using pencil today. Whatever pencil you guys prefer to work in is great. This is just a normal, I think it's just a B white pencil there. And we're also going to need a few bits of scrap paper for later on. Just a bit of printer paper and a pair of scissors. You might also want to use a ruler later on, but that is up to you. But hopefully all this stuff is stuff that you have at home that's super accessible. You don't need to source anything too niche for this workshop. Great, so to start with, all you're going to need to get ready is a piece of paper and a pencil. Great, so the first thing we are going to do today, guys, is warm up. So warming up is super important when you are starting a drawing session. It's important to warm up your fingers, your hands, your eyes, and tap into that kind of drawing part of your brain. I think of it in the same way as when you warm up, when you're exercising, warming up your body. It's exactly the same thing. The first drawing you're going to do is definitely going to be a little bit pants comparison to what you're able to do later when you have warmed up and got into the swing of it. So first thing we're going to do is really just kind of get familiar with our pencil, and we're going to get over the kind of fear of a blank piece of paper and not knowing how to fill it. So I want you guys at home to fill your page with as many different marks as you can make with your pencil. So just basically go wild. So you might want to start just with some light back and forward marks, and then maybe start to get a little bit darker. You see I've started very bold here just to really get me going. Start to really play with pressure in your pencil and how that can change your line. Getting lighter there. Even something as simple as a line is a really good way to get into a drawing and kind of tap you in. Got some little lines. I'm already thinking as I'm working here, what do these lines kind of remind me of? I'm enjoying this texture here. It's reminding me of maybe like animal fur or hair or something like that. Start to layer your marks up a bit. Basically just have a bit of fun with filling your page. Cross-hatching. Already looking nice and energetic. Different pencils will obviously do slightly different things as well. So if you've got more than one, you might want to try both. This pencil might be nice to try kind of using the side of it rather than just the tip. You can see you get really nice bold mark with that. I'm liking this one a lot. Also, obviously, every time I do this activity, you're going to get slightly different marks as well. It's always going to be a little bit unexpected, which always keeps it interesting. So once you do have a few marks like this, we can also try holding our pencil in different ways and seeing how that might change the marks we can make. So I'm going to start by holding the pencil right at the top, at the end here, and making marks like that. So already it's definitely freeing me up a lot, kind of getting more gestural marks like this, using the whole kind of length of my arm and the pencil. It's really quite nice. I might start to think, is it harder to apply pressure and get harder marks with this grip? And then I'm going to try the opposite. I'm going to hold my pencil right down there by the tip. See how that changes the marks? So this is definitely forcing me to be super kind of tight and small with my marks. really precise. That's definitely making me press a bit harder too. So you're basically thinking of all the different ways that you tell kids to not hold their pencils. So for example, next let's try it like this. You kind of quite a primal grip to the pencil. See what marks that makes. It's definitely feeling quite childish, which I really like. It makes me want to really scribble on the page. So hopefully you're kind of seeing yourself get a bit more used to holding a pencil again, loosening yourself up, making everything feel a bit freer, and yeah. Yeah, I really love the energy in these marks. To me, it's already kind of looking a bit like an animation. I'm kind of wanting to make these marks actually move, which I think would be a lot of fun. Okay, so well done guys. Once you've filled your page like mine, we can start to move on to the next activity. You might want to keep this sheet just somewhere you can see it, because it's going to be maybe quite a useful reference point for us as we go through the workshop. Great, so now we've got a little bit more familiar with our pencil, we've got a little bit warmed up, we're going to move on to working with and drawing an object. So I want you guys to have a look around you now and find an object that you want to spend some time drawing. So ideally you want it to be an object you can fit in kind of one hand and hold like that. And just make sure it's something that you find interesting enough and drawn to be able to want to draw repeatedly. We're going to be spending quite a bit of time with this one object, so don't make it too dull. So I'm going to go for this little glass pot that I, for some reason, have in the flat. Not really too sure what it is, but I really love the shape of it. You can see it's a really good size. I can hold it in one hand. And I just love these kind of ridges going down the pot and the kind of rounded surfaces, as well as how the glass is kind of filtering the light. I think it's really quite beautiful. So that's why I went for this object today. So have a little look around, pick something. I've done this activity before using like a hair grip, something like this. Worked really nicely. Yeah, whatever you guys are drawn to will work really well here. Yeah, have a look around, come back when you've got your object ready. And when you have selected it, just spend some time now kind of handling it, feeling the different surfaces, and just having a look at all the details that you can see. And then as you're doing that, I just want you to write down on your next page a few descriptive words that come to mind when you are handling the object. So I think for my glass bottle, I'm going to start with smooth. It's definitely smooth to the touch, so think about the texture of your object. It's also quite rounded and circular. There aren't that many kind of harsh, sharp edges on my object. Thinking about how it looks, it's also quite translucent. I think that's how you spell it. And also think, are there any focal points to your object? Anything you're really drawn to or you think makes your object particularly unique? I'm going to put something about these bumps. Let's call them rounded ridges. As long as you know what you mean, that's okay. So feel free to pause the video if you want to spend a bit more time finding an object or thinking of descriptive words. But yeah, about this many will be fine. You don't need to go overboard. And once you've done that, I want you to think back to your lovely mark making that you did. And I want you to think about how you can visually represent these words using different marks with your pencil. So we can do it quite intuitively. There's going to be no right or wrong with this. So for example, smooth for me just suggests a nice light back and forward line, pressing quite lightly with the pencil. And like I'm doing here, you can just do these marks next to your words or wherever makes sense for you, really. So it doesn't need to be too pictorial at this point. We're still thinking mainly about mark making and the marks you're making with the pencil. Some will be easier than others. Rounded and circular is obviously a little bit more self-explanatory. But again, I'm keeping my marks nice and light, as I think that is quite reflective of my object. I'm going to move on to translucent. I think I'm going to do just some light, quite spaced out cross hatching. And again, rounded ridges, a bit easier. But say you had a object with some kind of harsher lines, some pointy bits, you might want to think about pressing a lot harder with your pencil. And again, looking back at your sheet, what kind of marks speak to you? Okay, well done guys. I'll give you a little bit longer to finish that up and get some marks on your page, and we will be using these as reference for the next activity as well, so it's going to be useful. Okay. So I'm just going to move this away so I have space for my next drawing. So ideally you want to do the next drawing kind of on the same page, but don't worry if you need some more paper, that's totally fine. So we're going to move on now to our first proper observational drawing activity. So I like to call this tactile drawing, which hopefully is an apt name for it, but we will see. So all this means, guys, is you're going to pick up your object, hold it in one hand, and ideally you're going to put that object now behind your back or under your table, just somewhere that you can hold it but not see it. I'm going to keep it up here just to help you guys and help me explain it. And all you're going to do is you're going to feel your object, and as you're feeling it, you're going to draw what you are feeling. So it's not going to be a kind of visual representation of the object, more of a tactile representation of the object. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to give this a go and just see how you get on really. So I'm going to start at the top of my object and work my way down. So I'm kind of feeling circular ridge at the top there. Bit of a harsher line going around it. So really let your hand and fingers go all the way around the object. Back your way down to these rounded ridges. So yeah, do refer back to your marks because they will really help you if you're struggling with where to start. And they also kind of come around and all the way around the back. Remember, your object is 3D, it's not 2D, so it's going to go all the way around the object. And do try to vary your marks accordingly to the different textures and bumps and shapes on your object too. Moving down to this bit here, smoother, flatter surface. I find this activity really quite nice and meditative and chill, and just a really nice way to just really focus in on what you're feeling with your hands and kind of block out a lot of other senses, which you don't often get to do really. Just making my way around the bottom. About 2 minutes left to keep going on your tactile drawings. So yeah, keep turning your object round. I'm now right at the bottom bit. Really keep thinking as you're going along, what marks can I use to really communicate what I am feeling here? So I've come across now this strange kind of bumpy mark on the bottom of my object. So I'm thinking, how can I communicate that? I also love how this drawing activity is able to really get a quite direct route of communication between your two hands, the hand that's touching and the hand that's drawing. It's a really good activity for that. So start to think about finishing up your tactile drawings now. And just have a moment to reflect and look at your drawing and think, does this drawing kind of reflect something about my object and something about how it felt to touch my object? Yeah, I think mine definitely has captured a certain essence of it. I think I like this circle I did at the bottom. I think that really highlights the kind of smooth roundness of the whole thing. And the marks I think have worked quite nicely. So yeah, take a moment to reflect and think about what you liked and also what you think maybe you didn't like as much. Really important to have a reflect after you've done a drawing. And then we will get our new page. And get ready for our next drawing. Great, so for our next drawing we are almost going to be doing the opposite thing. We are going to be doing what I call a line drawing. So we are going to be only looking at the object and not looking at our page or what we have drawn so far. So get your object again and just position it in a way that is really clearly visible and is at a good angle for you. And I'm going to trust you guys not to cheat, but if you want you can pop your hand maybe over where you're drawing so you're not tempted. But yes, the idea of this is that we're really just relying on our eyes, looking at the object, and we're not getting distracted by what we've drawn or by any kind of preconceived notion of what we want the drawing to be like. We're really just letting go and being very free with it. So again, 5 minutes to have a go at this blind drawing. So I'm going to try my best not to look, even though it's going to maybe be a little bit harder for me. But I'm going to do the best I can. Okay. So I'm just letting my eye follow kind of the contours of my object and letting my pen follow. Really going around these circular bits. Thinking about any details that I might have only just spotted. These little glints of light. This is a super fun drawing activity to do for portraits as well. So just drawing yourself or someone else, you get some really kind of fun and funny results. Really recommend that. I don't want to add any shadows. There's quite a lot of shadow on mine today. So there's one of mine. I do work quite quickly, so I'm going to keep going, turn my object and do another one. But no pressure, work at your own pace for this one. So I'm just going to turn it to the side this time. And keep going on the same page. Doesn't matter if you overlap your drawings, actually that can be really fun. Another 2 minutes to keep going with your blind drawings. And really try and fill your page as well. Don't make them too small, kind of contain. Try and loosen up and use as much of the paper as you can. Oh, I'm going to crash into the sign. Sometimes it is really good to just keep going, keep repeating the drawing, because you will just keep discovering things the more that you draw your object. Don't worry if you go off the page either. Again, that's quite an interesting composition. Great, and start to think about finishing your blind drawings now, and you can have a fun moment of reveal where you can look at what you've got on the page and hopefully be pleasantly surprised by how fun and unexpected your drawings look. I really love how just free and slightly chaotic they always turn out to be, and it's always fun to have a look and think, do these drawings remind you of anything else beyond just a glass bottle? I think this one here definitely looks alive to me somehow. It's kind of energetic marks going off. So it kind of, yeah, maybe looks a little bit alive, a little bit animalistic, which is super, super fun. Okay, so yeah, again, take a moment to reflect on your drawings there, and hopefully you are excited by the marks that you've made on your page. Great, so we'll move on to our next drawing now. So get a new sheet of paper ready. And for this drawing, we're going to be using continuous line. So that simply means you're going to do a drawing of your object, but your pen cannot leave the paper until your drawing is finished. So that means no pausing, taking your pen off, rubbing anything out. That pen has to stay glued to the paper for the whole drawing. So another 5 minutes. And let's make a start. So you already see I've created some kind of nice wobbly contour lines on my glass bottle, which are really nice. So again, let your eye travel down and around the object, and you let your pencil follow. Obviously, if you want to go back, make any edits, just go back over the line again, back to where you need to be. So it's not too much about accuracy and precision here, but you're almost just making a map of the journey that your eye has taken travelling around the object. I'm still managing to use some different marks, not just one line. Yeah, I'm just going to add in those glints of light that I noticed when I was doing another drawing. And I think I'm ready to pause that drawing, so I'm going to take my pencil off, have a look, sharpen my pencil, and then I will do the same thing again. Put my glass bottle in a slightly different position. That's going to roll, isn't it? I also find this a really relaxing process, just kind of letting your pencil travel across the page. It's almost like it's got a life of its own. About 2 more minutes on this continuous line drawing. I'm really liking these circular ridges on mine. Yeah, feel free to keep going kind of over and over the same section if you want to really emphasize it, or add a bit of darker tone. So I'm really going over the kind of spout of the bottle here to really develop and hone in on the shape of it. Great, and we will finish up that drawing there. So again, take some time, have a look at it, think about what went well with your drawing and maybe what didn't work quite as well. So yeah, I do really like this section here at the bottom. I think it worked really well when I sharpened my pencil as well, so that's also something to remember. Right, well done guys. We're going to move on to our last drawing activity for this section of the workshop. So again, get yourself a fresh sheet of paper if you need to. And this time we're going to be doing a drawing using our non-dominant hand. So that simply means using the hand I don't normally use. So I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be using my left hand for this activity, and obviously vice versa. So 5 minutes again on this drawing, and let's make a start. So you can definitely look at the object this time, and you can definitely take your pencil off the paper. It's just using non-dominant hand. So already it's feeling a little bit weird to use the hand that's a little bit less stable. It's definitely less used to this kind of motion and this fine motor control. So it's a lot harder to get precise marks and kind of harsher marks as well. But yeah, just see how your marks change in this less familiar hand, because it is really quite freeing. The marks are definitely a lot looser. I also think already after doing one drawing, moving on to another one, my left hand is already starting to get a bit more confident and a bit more used to the actions. So think about if that's the same for you at home, although it is starting to get a little bit tense in this position now. I'm also thinking working a bit bigger with my left hand, because it is harder to get really small and precise marks. What I find so great and beneficial about these kind of activities is that by providing this kind of restriction on a drawing, say using your left hand, you are really relieving a bit of pressure and a bit of expectation from your drawing, because you know it's not going to be a perfect drawing, you know that. So there is just no pressure to create a perfect drawing, and that can be so freeing, again, whether you draw a lot or whether it's something that's totally new to you. Okay, about 2 more minutes on this activity. Do start to layer up your drawings as well, create some really interesting kind of conversations between the different drawings, as well as just some nice lines and marks that start to layer up. Okay, so start to finish up there, have a look at your drawing, and now's also a good point to have a look at the other drawings you've done in the activities, compare them, see how your marks have changed, think about maybe what your favourite ones are and how they have captured the object in different ways. So I think maybe my favourite of these blind drawings, I really like the energy about them. My favourite. Great guys, so now we've got really familiar with our one object by doing lots of those amazing drawings. We are going to add a few more objects and essentially create our own little still life to draw from. So that's just a collection of 4 or 5 objects. So I'll give you guys some time to collect those now. So ideally you'll want a bit of contrast between your objects, some slightly bigger, some slightly smaller, some different shapes, and maybe some contrasting textures or tones. This would just help your drawing remain quite interesting. However, this isn't like an intense still life class, so don't worry too much. Anything you can grab from near you will probably work just well. Even looking around me on my table, on my desk, I've got so many bits and bobs that I know would work really well, even as they are now scattered about. So I think it's definitely a good idea to keep the object you've been using, because we're really familiar with it now, and you clearly picked it for a reason. So I'm keeping my glass bottle. I'm also going to use this bottle of ink, because I just love this really black reflective shiny surface, and I think that's going to look really nice behind my glass bottle too. I've got this half burnt candle, mainly because I love this bulging shape of the wax as it's starting to melt, and that's going to be super fun to draw. And I've also just got a peg, mainly because it's a really fun shape. I like the spring inside, and it's a bit smaller, so it will sit nicely in front of my objects there. So feel free to pause the video, guys, and have a quick look around your room, or wherever you're in at the moment, to just find things that you think will look lovely in your still life, and just arrange them in front of your sketch pad like I have here. And I'll see you in a second. Great, so now you've got all your objects together, you're going to also want to grab your piece of scrap paper and your pair of scissors. I'm going to show you how to make a little viewfinder, which is like this, a little bit of paper with a window cut in the centre, and we're going to use that to create some really interesting compositions for the next part of the workshop today. So you're going to want to make your scrap paper A5 size, so that's half of A4, just like this. And the first thing we're going to want to do is fold our paper in half, and then in half again. So essentially just folding it into quarters. And don't worry about it being the neatest folding you've ever done, doesn't really matter too much. So that was in half again. And then you're going to grab your scissors, and in the corner here where all the folds are meeting, you're just going to cut a small rectangle like so. And that is going to be the middle window in your viewfinder. So you can see when I open it now, there it is. Okay, so obviously the bigger rectangle you cut, the bigger your window is going to be. So here's one that's slightly bigger. So feel free to have a play about making different sizes. I'd say to start with, keep it fairly small, but yeah, totally up to you. Definitely fun to have a play around. I love viewfinders. I think they're so useful as a way to help frame your drawing, and they essentially can act as little windows, as ways into drawing too, to really help give your subject matter a good focus point. So for example, if I'm out and about drawing on location, that can be very overwhelming. There's often lots going on and so much that you could want to draw. So you really do need to focus in a little bit. So having one of these or having the little square drawn on your paper really helps you hone in on a focus point and helps to block out anything that you might cast as background noise or stuff that isn't just relevant to you right then. And it's also a really good way of finding compositions in subject matter and working out what looks best. But I'm going to show you how to do those things today and show you how we can use them. So when you've got your viewfinder, again, feel free to pause the video or go back if you want to see again how to make it. We're just going to get our next sheet of paper. Pencil and your viewfinder ready. And now you can already start to hold your viewfinder up to your still life and have a look at it through that window and see how that changes what you're looking at. So you can hopefully already see how it is cropping your still life and taking it a little bit out of context. So the ink bottle, instead of now looking like an ink bottle, kind of looks like a really interesting black shape. You've taken away a bit of the scale as well, so maybe it looks like, I don't know, a massive black oil tank or something, I'm not sure. So it's already starting to abstract a little bit there. So my challenge to you guys now for the rest of the workshop is to see how many different compositions you can make using just your still life and your viewfinder. So how we're going to do that is we are going to draw on our paper a small rectangle that is essentially acting as the window. You're going to hold your viewfinder up to your still life, find your first composition, and everything you can see in that window you are going to draw into your rectangle. And I want you to see how many you can do. See if you can even fill the page with all of these different little thumbnails. So for example, in my first one, I can see a bit of the peg and the corner of the ink bottle and a tiny bit of the glass bottle. So I'm just going to start to sketch that in now. This is the peg. And again, I'm keeping it very loose and quick. Go, peg, quite hard to draw this peg. And another good thing about these viewfinders and this little setup with the thumbnails is that it's also quite achievable. You've given yourself a smaller kind of bit of paper to fill. So it's easy to do quite quickly and not be too daunted by it either. This is just the ink bottle. I'm making it quite dark because I think that contrast will work really nicely. Just the corner there. Also see a bit of the grid on my cutting mat, which I'm going to add in because I think it helps to ground the image a little bit. So anything else you can see in the background, add in as well. Lines of tables, edges of desks, that kind of thing work nicely. So that's my first one done. So then what I could do next is draw next rectangle and find a new composition in my objects. So I'm just going to place it there, leaning there. And now I can see the edge of the candle and the edge of the glass bottle. So I'm going to start sketching that in. A bit of the wick poking there. The glass bottle here. So I'm keeping my lines nice and free, again thinking back to all those wonderful marks we did at the start of the session, how I can use different marks for different objects. So I'm keeping the glass bottle nice and light and smooth. I'm adding a few kind of darker, harsher lines into the candle as it is a little bit of a more solid object. But I'm really liking the shape of this bulging wax. That's looking lovely. You also might want to turn your viewfinder the other way up, so now it's going to be portrait, and let's do it against the side of the ink bottle. And once you have got a good amount of these lovely quick thumbnails, they're also a really good starting point for other pieces of art, because you've got all these amazing compositions that can be applied to different mediums such as painting, crochet in my sense, or even little thumbnails for animations. A really good starting point for ideas. And hopefully as you're working through, guys, you can also see how your still life is becoming abstracted. They're not really looking like the objects anymore. They've taken on a life of their own when you crop them and put them in a new context. So that is what really That's what's really exciting about this process. So I've done 3 so far, but please continue to fill your page at home as we start to wrap up the workshop today. And even these 3 on the page is quite a nice composition. I like the kind of conversations that are starting to happen even between the marks, these curves starting to link up a little bit. So lots of interesting things starting to happen. And yes, you can even use your viewfinder on your own work. Say you're struggling a bit, you've got a bit sick of your drawing or any other piece of work, just hold this up to your drawing and you'll already start to see some different possibilities in it. So it's a really good starting point for things like that as well. Alright guys, so that pretty much brings us to the end of our drawing workshop today. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, learned something new, even had a bit of fun, and hopefully approached drawing in a different way. If you guys have done any drawings that you'd like to share with me, I would love to see them. You can just share them with me on Instagram, which is that there. And mainly a massive thank you guys for watching the workshop today, and of course a huge thank you for Artgecko for hosting the workshop, giving me the opportunity to run it today, and of course their amazing paper. There are so many more amazing Art Club workshops on their channel which I have had the joy of watching, so I'd really recommend checking them out if you haven't already. And yeah, again, a massive thank you for coming, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day. I've been Kat Thomas, and I will say bye. All right, bye.